Welcome to the Glass Hardware Show, a podcast where we talk about real experiences, real growth, and real success in the glass and glazing industry. Today, we're joined by Keith Daubmann, a professional with more than 2 decades in the glass and glazing industry, in the manufacturing, sales, and content creation sector. Today, we're going to talk about those things nobody teaches you in the field. Keith, welcome in. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. This is really exciting. I love podcasting.
Awesome. That's great. Keith, tell us a little bit about you, a background for those that are listening, watching us. Who are you and how did you get into the glass industry?
Yes, well, thank you for asking because I love to tell this story, how we got into the glass industry, because I get to pay homage to my family. I have myself, Keith Daubmann. I have a younger brother, Douglas Daubmann, and we're originally from a town in Western Massachusetts. And if I take you back to about 1987, I was had been diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was about 12 years old. At the time, my mother and father working really blue-collar jobs. My mother was the neighborhood beautician. She kind of cut everybody's hair in the neighborhood in our basement. And my father was selling alarm systems, residential alarm systems. And when they found out that I had cancer, neither one of them had insurance. They didn't have the means to put me into a position to get the care I needed. And so that really put them in a difficult position, as you can imagine, especially if you have children. And so what did they do? They kind of leaned into it and they leveraged their house to take some equity out and started a business. And that business at the time was closet shelving and organizing in new construction homes, which then ended up morphing into shower doors in the glass industry. And I tell people in situations like this that me getting cancer was one of the best things that ever happened to me and my family in my life.
Wow.
Because it was the catalyst to end up turning them into entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And then because of that, about a year into their business, they were able to acquire enough capital and means to put me into the Boston Children's Hospital, where I ultimately ended up getting the treatment I needed and went into remission. And then my brother and I ended up growing up in an entrepreneurial family. So again, it was a true blessing in disguise. And so at the time I was 12, I'll be 49 this year. But that's kind of how our journey started into business. Then you fast forward into 2003, our family ended up there, there's a lot happened in between there. My brother and I growing up in the business, but we ended up moving to South Florida. We talked them into kind of semi-retiring and selling their business and their home and their building. And my brother and I would start our own business kind of on the lessons that we learned from them in South Florida, in Naples. And that's where we opened our first showroom, My Shower Door, in September of 2003. So about 23 years ago.
Wow, that's
And that was kind of our story to get into the industry. So it was again, I like to say, a true blessing in disguise.
So wow, that's an inspiring story. And Keith, you were telling me that your parents, your family got into the shower industry, but also you were telling me a little bit because I know you from my architectural glass, but you were telling me before something about that, how my architectural glass interacts with my shower door, or how it's everything. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys are doing to.
I'll give you the short version. So in 2003, we started the company called My Shower Door. And from there, we grew several locations, Naples. Then we went north into Fort Myers. We added a third store in Sarasota. Now we're about 2008 and the recession happened, where a lot of new construction kind of just stopped. But luckily for us, our company wasn't built chasing new construction when we started. We were actually trying to get into what's called the retro market. We were advertising to the end user. And our shtick was, if you had an old frame door and you wanted to remove it and just make it frameless without going through the whole renovation of a whole new bathroom or building a whole new house, that was the market that we were catering to. And when the recession happened, new construction stopped, which really hurt a lot of our competitors, but it didn't hurt us as much because we weren't solely reliant on new construction, these big tract housing developments, et cetera, et cetera. And so when that recession happened, property values dropped considerably. And just about that time, our business was really climbing, and we kind of knew that we wanted to get into doing our own manufacturing, because learning the process of acquiring the customer, measuring it, ordering the glass, waiting for that glass to come in from the glass manufacturer was kind of a sticking point for us to really provide high-level customer service, because we didn't control it. So we're really beholden on someone else to provide really good
You
customer
wanted to
service.
control everything.
We
in order
wanted to,
provide.
which I'm sure everybody says they want to, but it's not as easy as you sound. Getting into manufacturing is completely different than retail sales and installation. That's a whole different
it's a
animal.
whole different model.
Cash flow is
business and
different,
everything.
culture's different, manufacturing machines, this is a big thing. But we knew we wanted to do that. And when the recession happened, it was kind of a catalyst for us to do that, because we wouldn't have been able to afford the property values where we would eventually end up putting our manufacturing facility before the recession. So the recession, much like the first story I told you, was another blessing in disguise. It brought property values down that were in the millions down to an affordable rate for us to kind of limp in, buy a piece of property. And because we go to glass build, for the last 20 years, we always knew that, man, there's a lot of resources and information that can be gleaned from going to glass build. And we said, in 2008, let's go back to glass build. Let's learn as much as we can about the manufacturing process, meet as many contacts as we can. And we went on this tour of touring manufacturing facilities throughout the country, went to about a dozen manufacturing facilities to try and learn as much as possible, because we had zero manufacturing experience. So in 2010, we bought the building, the property, the building, and then we started acquiring machinery. We bought the most minimum amount of machinery possible to get into the glass manufacturing space to satisfy our own orders at my shower door. We did not get into manufacturing to sell glass to the whole glass industry. We did it primarily for ourselves. Consequently, once we started manufacturing and tempering, other glass shops started calling us, because there's hundreds of people that install and sell glass. Now that number comes down considerably when you say how many people actually make the glass.
Exactly.
And then, okay, how many people do it at a high level? Most of the manufacturing companies out there do not offer installation. So they're not as in tune with the importance of the quality of the end product. Let's take, I'm not going to say any of the names, but any of the big tempering houses are usually owned by private equity, and they're about quantity, not so much quality, because they're not doing the installation. We know the impact of when a piece of glass comes off the tempering oven and goes in the back of that truck and goes all the way to the customer's house. It needs to be perfect, because if it's not, the two guys got to get back in the truck, drive back to that. That's a heavy cost. So we started manufacturing process 2010, 2013, we're full-blown manufacturing. So we had my shower door. Now we have a company called D3. Our last name's Daubmann. There was three of us, my brother, father, myself. And so
D3 is a manufacturing.
D3 is our tempering and laminating manufacturing facility. We've grown now to a 70,000 square foot facility where we do all this. And that services all of our now 11 My Shower Door locations. Now you asked about the My Architectural Glass. We're about 6 years into manufacturing, and my brother and now general manager Bryce Hulbert says we need more panels of glass. We need to get more panels in at a regular basis so we can get our yields better, our buying power better, buy more stock glass. And I was on the sales side of My Shower Door. And when they told me this, I said, well, I'd love to sell more shower doors, but then they're like, we need a lot more glass. So while I was combing over all these plans of all these builders that we already had in our possession, as I'm looking through the plans, I start seeing, well, wait, there's glass railings. There's these office partitions and room dividers. There's wine cellars becoming a thing. And I'm saying, I'm not saying that installing those is super easy. But there's a lot of similarities between square, plumb, and level with shower enclosures. So it's not, it's not rocket scientists. I mean, there's nuances that you have to learn just like everything else. But I said, man, we could do this. We didn't want to water down our My Shower Door brand because we were just kind of known for a niche of just doing shower enclosures. So we said, let's start an architectural division. What are we going to name it? Well, we wanted the word my in it. We said My Architectural Glass. This was in 2017. And right at that time, my mother, out of all people, says, Keith, we need to get creative to get more attention. And I'd really like it if you got on social media. And I says, I was installing and then I'm doing sales. And I says, I'm not a social media guy because in my mind, I thought social media was I'm posting, we're going to a birthday party, I'm checking in at a restaurant. And I'm like, that's just not me. I don't want to post about that stuff. As the kids would call, I'm an old head. I wasn't doing it. And she showed me, she goes, Keith, watch this video of this guy named Gary V. And I says, okay. And she showed me the video. And literally that one video kind of set that epiphany moment for me that, oh, you can actually use the social media to attract attention to your business. And the light bulb went off. And I says, okay, when we start My Architectural Glass, I'll get on social media and I will start posting content to get attention to drive more business through My Architectural Glass. But I'm going to do it completely different than the My Shower's already kind of big, kind of has this corporate marketing behind it. I didn't want to disrupt that. And if you've seen any of my content, it's not traditional marketing in any sense of the imagination.
No, and you're getting to a segment from all the questions that I really wanted to ask you. But before we get into that, Keith, you have been in the industry long enough to see guys coming in technically sharp, but washing out anyways. What do you think? I mean, happened there? I mean, based on the great story you just mentioned, growth, opening different companies, seeing different aspects, and growing your business into different models. What do you think happened with this kind of individuals? I mean, that are very technical, but not able to grow.
Okay, that I think that's probably one of the most common things with newer entrepreneurs, not only just in the glass industry, but almost any service industry. Most of them are craftsmen. They're very good with their hands. They're good installers. Like that's not a problem for them at all. It's the business acumen.
Okay.
And a lot of them say, well, maybe they're a good installer for another company for 10 years and they see the bottom line on all these invoices. They're collecting the check at the end of the job. They're thinking, man, I could do this. And they figure, well, I'm going to get into the shower door space or glass space and I'm just going to I don't have a lot of overhead, so I'll just sell on price. I'll be the cheap guy and that'll be my way to get into the game. And the problem with that is, I think we were talking earlier off camera, is somebody doesn't know about margins, gross profit margin, net margin, and is not looking into the future. When you start selling on price, for instance, you buy something, let's just say for $500, and they're like, well, I put $300 on top of it, installed it, and made $300. You and I both know you didn't profit $300. But more importantly, in the long run, when you start selling on price and the low price, you're not anticipating in the second year, one of your employees is going to need a raise. In year 2 and 3, you're going to need to reinvest in your business. You got to buy another truck. You're going to need to buy tools. Your rent went up. And when you're starting your business off selling as the cheapest guy in the market, you're already handicapping yourself very soon into the future. And you're going to stifle yourself. The second kind of unintended consequence is I call it feeding the alligator theory. Once you start telling the market that you can buy something cheap like this, now you're kind of not only ruining it for everybody else, but you're giving this false reality of what the true value of this product is by selling solely based on price. People that sell on price don't know how to deliver value. And I think that's probably the number one problem why most guys and don't take my word for it. Now you can AI or Google it, but the Better Business Bureau tells you almost 90% of businesses that start off will fail in the first 2 years. And I
Yeah.
believe it's because of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They sell on price.
And do you think, I mean, the young professionals entering to the trade are underestimating that, or something else?
No, I think they're grossly underestimated. They'll tell you it's something else because their pride is in the way. And the reason why they don't know how to raise the prices or sell at a higher ticket item is they don't have the skill set. They've been focused in their toolbox and on their craft, and they're probably damn good at that. But they haven't spent a lot of time on the rapport building, the trust building, creating value, overcoming objections. No one's ever taught them that. We're not taught that in school. These are things that you only, and I didn't know this when I first started. These were things I had to learn after dozens of years of beating my head against the wall. Starting to think, we need to grow. Something's missing here. My instinct, my gut is telling me we've learned in every other aspect of the business, whether it's process, installation, manufacturing, but what about the sales component? This
Yeah,
is a massive component.
you touched something very important, very very good. And looking back, what skills do you wish someone had taught you earlier, or what skills would you like to learn earlier? Something like what you're mentioning, or
Okay, well, this could be a whole podcast in itself, but if we were to summarize that all into one word, it would be empathy. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this later in the show, the emotional intelligence. We're not taught in school or even in university, I imagine. I wouldn't know because I didn't go to university, but how to communicate at a high level. I think everybody's used to talking what they call a didactic conversation, meaning you talk, I react, then you talk back. And that is the most common way of people communicating. And when reality, the top 1% salespeople or high level earners really only communicate about 30% of a conversation because they're spending 70% of the time listening. And they're not just listening for what's on the surface. I'm listening to see what your true pain point is. Because once I can identify that, now I can show you value. Now we're talking about a solution and we're not talking about price, which is what most of the people that are unaware of this
yeah,
end up doing. And it's a trap. When you're selling on price or if you're pitching, you're already losing. And so one of the biggest things I learned over the years was how to be a better listener. I think human beings as a whole want to show how smart they are, and they want to correct people. And these are certain human dynamics that are almost unavoidable. People really want to show you how smart we are. And I'm like, here's our shiny new product. And I got to tell you about our hinges. And I got to tell you about all the accolades we have. And we have our own manufacturing and we have 200 employees. Well, that doesn't really solve the problem that you're after. So I'm actually just wasting your time
exactly.
and I'm not building rapport. So once I came across this, because I bumped into a mentor and kind of had a reflection point where I said, I need to try something different. I'm not getting the results that I know I want.
So you think emotional intelligence can sometimes be more important than technical skills and hard skills,
It
or
is,
it's a combination? What do you think about that?
there's no question of a doubt in my mind now after my real life. And by the way, I want to tell all your listeners, I like to learn every single lesson the hard way. So I'm telling you this from information that I've learned the hard way. The emotional intelligence is by far the single most important thing that you could study and learn in your business. And the reason why it's so hard, it's a perishable skill. We're so used to communicating and chasing things a certain way that if we're not actively aware of this, we're just going to fall back into our other traps. And why I say the emotional intelligence is almost more important than the craftsmanship is when you can build enough trust and rapport with a potential opportunity, you're buying yourself a lot of latitude when you go do that installation. Meaning there's going to be guys that are watching this that have gone out to a job site, they're drilling, a tile breaks, not because of their fault, probably poor tile installation, and the customer legit loses their shit. I mean, they just lose their mind because they don't really know you. They haven't built a lot of trust. They know they gave you money. You just went in their bathroom and ruined their tile. They don't even want to listen to why the tile broke. Whereas when the salesperson was there, if they built up a strong enough bond and relationship with that individual, that will give a lot more latitude and rope for potential hurdles that might come during implementation and delivery. And so even though the craftsmanship is important, what's happening before that? That's the trust building process, which falls under emotional intelligence.
Yeah, well, that's great, and today is we talk more about that. We talk more about emotional intelligence. But how do you how do you give feedback to a technician, to installer, who has been in the trade longer than you probably, and these kind of things are not in his brain, because I mean this is more like
Yeah.
today, and today's we talk more about emotional intelligence, but how you give that kind of feedback to a technician that it's
It's tough. I know this because I've tried to train these skills and tactics to several of my colleagues. And what I've learned over the last 5 years is if an individual, anybody, not just with our firm, but any individual is not actively wanting to be coachable, they will not learn these things because the pride and ego is too powerful to allow them to be vulnerable enough to want to learn something new. They want to feel comfortable. And what's comfortable is something that they've been doing over and over again, even if it's not helping their own growth or getting to where the dreams and aspirations that they might have. Preservation of autonomy is a people will literally die to preserve their own autonomy. They will. They will. There's many examples of this, and I could give several, but if you don't want to learn something, you're not going to learn it. So when we interview people now, one of the most important things that I look for in a new employee is coachability.
okay.
And I already know somebody that's older than me, if they're going to possibly come collaborate and work on our team, I know that this dynamic already exists, that they're probably set in their ways. I'm not going to tell them anything that they haven't seen 100 times. So I need to approach it a little bit differently. How would I do that? I would ask, what are your aspirations for the future? Where do you see yourself in the future? And I'm going to kind of let them, it's called the illusion of control. I'm going to allow them to paint a picture of where they want to go. And I'm going to show them creatively without finger pointing. I'm going to preserve their autonomy, show them that the way that you're currently operating is not going to allow you to get to this path. And so with your permission, I'd like to show you some other tools that you might be able to add to your current repertoire that'll help you achieve that. And instead of saying, dude, this is fucked up. It's never going to get to where you want to go doing it your way. This is stupid. You need to listen to me. And I think that's how a lot of bosses or owners will approach employees, which is incorrect because you're not preserving their autonomy. As I said earlier,
Yeah.
people will die to preserve their own autonomy. So you have to approach it in an emotionally intelligent manner.
Applying emotional intelligence to
And there's always another way. I don't believe, I ask a lot of people this. This is a fun party conversation in the way of emotional intelligence. I would ask you, what do you think about the word compromise? Do you like compromise? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's necessary within negotiation? I would argue that compromise is a very bad thing. It's a very dangerous thing.
okay.
A mentor that I followed gives this example. You're going home, and after this podcast, you're going to go out to dinner tonight with another couple. You and your wife are going to go out, and she's already laid out an outfit for you. You guys are going to match, but you know in your mind when you're going home, man, I want to wear these black shoes. So I got these new black dress shoes. They're beautiful. But she's got a pair of brown ones picked out. So you guys are going to compromise, and you're going to wear one of each. Is that good? No, it's not good. It's idiotic. And in business, a lot of people will compromise all the installers that are watching this, I know that they've felt this before. You go out, you pitch a customer on a $1,500 shower door, but you need to close this deal because you need cash flow, you need work for your guys, whatever the case may be. And you're out there and the customer's like, well, I've had 3 other bids. I really like you. I'll give you this deal for $1,300.
Yeah, you touched a question that I really wanted to ask you: how to handle customers who's shopping around, and when your numbers doesn't justify that. So you're connecting the question that I wanted to ask you with
Well,
that.
so you can't compromise, because what ends up happening psychologically is when you cut your price, you still have to install. And everybody that's watched this has cut their price at some point and then gone out to the house and something happened. The customer didn't show up the first time. Or when they were there, they're like, oh, I don't want that color channel. I want something different. Or you find a scratch in the glass. And the first thing that your brain says is, God dang it, I shouldn't have cut my price. I knew I shouldn't have cut my price. Now, not only did I lose money on the front end, they're costing me money because they didn't show up on time. They didn't answer my phone call. They're nitpicking my caulking job, whatever the case may be. And it ends up biting you in the ass. So psychologically, you cannot give the customer their best possible experience because you cut your price. You won't feel better about the interaction with that human being until you get even, which means you found a piece of glass when you were installing, it had a scratch in it. And you, in your mind, while you're out there installing, is, if this was my mother's enclosure, I'd probably tell her I got to order a new panel, even though it's going to cost me money because I got to drive back. I'm going to come back because it's the right thing to do. But if you went out to a house where a customer beat you up on your price and you compromised, you might try and get away with, hey, come in, look at the shiny new door and handle over here. Don't look over there and see the scratch. Well, is that high-level customer service? No.
Absolutely not.
And that's why I say you should never compromise your price. So to answer your question in particular, how do you combat that? It's really a sequencing issue. It starts long before you sit down at the table and actually start talking about price. There's communication that has to be happening when you first arrive that starts building rapport. And rapport is the fastest way to build trust. And once you have that trust, then you're able to go and sit down and talk about price, and you're less likely to have to start compromising your price once you have the customer's trust.
Yeah.
The price is never the most important thing. For anybody that's selling shower doors, the most important thing for that customer is buying the shower door, not what the actual shower door costs. Because if the customer is talking about the price, they don't see the value, which means you didn't explain it well enough or to a point where they would digest it.
Yeah, and that connects to what you were saying before. I mean, you didn't spend the time to listen what the pain points were. I mean, you didn't have that conversation. You didn't listen enough. So if you got to the point talking about just prices, I mean, you didn't do what
you didn't do your due diligence.
Exactly.
And that's not a bad, that's the most predictable pattern in not only our industry, but all the services, especially if you're new to the game. Your boss threw you in a sales car, gave you a clipboard, says, now go sell and bring back the money. And now you're in front of a customer. You can sense that they're willing to write you a check. And so you got to take a little bit of money off. At least you get to go back and show your boss, like, close something. You just can't scale or grow on that mentality. Whereas if you could take a little bit more time on the front end to tease out the information that's really important to the client, meaning they want someone they can trust. Well, how do you do that? If I was going to your house right away and I'd say, man, it looks like you just remodeled your whole bathroom. You're like, oh yeah, we spent a fortune on this. You spend a fortune? They're like, yeah, this whole bathroom cost me like $80,000. I'd say, wow, sounds like you want to hire someone you can trust to do a good job here and not to ruin your bathroom. Like, oh yeah, that's why we called you. Okay, now I'm already setting the tone that price is down here. What's really important is someone that they can trust, that can take care of this, not only if it goes perfect, but God forbid there's a problem. And we're not focusing on the price, we're focusing on the value that they get with the price. And if I start seeding all those things in the beginning of the conversation, again, none of this skill set is perfect, but it gives you the best opportunity to close your deal at the dollar amount that you need to provide the highest level of service for the customer.
That's cool.
And so I think cutting price and compromising is a lazy approach because they're either uncomfortable having a difficult conversation, probably because they don't know how, because no one taught them, or they're just not an ambitious, savvy business individual.
Are you liking this video? Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. Now, let's continue with the episode. And do you think every interaction could be a sales interaction?
1,000%. I'll give you an example. I knew somebody that worked at a Starbucks. They told me this after they were a barista, and we were talking about bad customer service and good customer service. And this barista told me that when a customer comes up to them and they're rude to them, like they're on their phone, like, hey, just get me a latte in the morning. He says, I'll give them decaf instead of regular coffee because they were rude to them. So even when you're buying coffee, if you say I want or I need something, you're in a negotiation. Because if you don't like the way I asked you, you're not going to provide me good customer service. You see what I'm saying? So even though it seems such a trivial thing to do, but buying coffee is a negotiation. Now, if I went up to you and say, seems like you're having a great day, and you're like, yeah, man, this is the best day. Maybe you end up giving me a large instead of a medium at no cost because you see me as an individual, and you, more importantly, you see that I see you as an individual versus just get me my coffee. I'm on the phone. You're not important to me. So yes, body language.
What kind of advices would you give to someone who feels uncomfortable selling? I mean, these kind of things are amazing for that people, for the people who likes interact with other people, but those that are uncomfortable selling or see selling, like, I don't know. I mean,
it can be uncomfortable because it's new. Anything that's new for anybody is going to be uncomfortable. The good news is that there's science out there that says when we're uncomfortable, that means we're growing. If I'm right-handed and I brush my teeth 3 times a day with my right hand, if I started brushing my teeth with my left hand, I would be massively uncomfortable. The good news is the science says in approximately 21 to 30 days of practicing with that left hand every day, by that 30th day, I'm going to be pretty good. And so just like in sales, if you're uncomfortable, that's good. That means you're learning. You just have to stick with it. It's no different than being on this podcast. How was your first podcast? Was it uncomfortable for you?
A lot.
Okay. Well, now you're on, what is this, 10, 15?
10, yeah.
You seem pretty dialed in and you know what you're doing now. So just like anything else, repetition, you have to want to do it too. That's the key. If you're not wanting to be a good salesperson, if you're not wanting to be a good communicator, you won't be. But if you have ambition and commitment and drive, just like working out or anything else, this is a long tail approach. You have to be committed to it.
And what are those lessons that have the greatest impact in terms of sales and overall in your career? I mean,
well, the biggest lessons that will stick with anybody is anytime it costs you time or money. So if you are doing a sales job and you realize at the end of that sale that you lost money for your company, that's not a good thing for the company, but it's a good thing for you because I bet you'll never make that mistake again.
Yeah.
So failing early and often is actually a good thing. You're never going to get to the top of anything without experiencing some failures along the way. So I think setting a manageable level of expectations for yourself, trying any new skill, I think is a very important component, but also being committed to not quitting when you're going through that difficult time frame in the learning process. I think.
cool.
Yeah.
Keith, the glass industry is not loud online. And here's what I wanted to connect with what you were saying before about the social media and things like that. Why do you think it's not that loud online or in social media? And what are you doing in terms of, or how you started kind of creating content
Okay.
and doing, I mean,
Yeah.
everything that you do?
I think I could tie those two together. When we started the architectural division in 2016, 2017, my mother said, Keith, you need to get on social media. And I saw the Gary Vee post. And what I realized when I started doing it was there wasn't a lot of other people collectively in the glass industry. So I said, wow, what an opportunity. I always knew I wanted to leave a mark in the glass industry. I think everybody likes to win, but I think what everybody wants more than winning is to leave a legacy. And well, how do you do that? You have to be doing something different and at a high level that no one else has done before. And okay, I think we do shower doors at a high level. Are we the best at it? I don't know. I don't know everybody else. I think we do a good job. But when I got onto the social media, I realized there's not a lot of people doing this. This seems like an area where I could really dive into and probably start to garner some success pretty quickly if I go all in on it, all in. And I was nervous, much like your probably first podcast. My first year's worth of selfie videos on LinkedIn were brutal. They were brutal. Everybody in my closest circle, other than my mother, would make fun of me. Why are you doing this? What do you think? You're one of the Jenner. Like, stop doing your tick. Nobody's watching this. You're wasting your time. You look like a fool. But I knew in my gut that I needed to be doing something to start acquiring more attention to our business. Because at the time on that startup, we didn't have the money to flood the TVs and newspapers and billboards for advertising. Just a little footnote. In the history of business and advertising, there's never been a time where we could reach potentially millions of people with a 10-second video that cost you $0. Before, you would have had to buy TV ads, you'd had to buy billboard, newspaper, you had to pay money and production time. People had to approve it. It had to go through a whole committee of people before you would deliver this piece of marketing. And the social media has really been an equalizer for small businesses to compete with a larger business if you're willing to put yourself out there. And once I realized that, that's when I says, I'm going to do it in the glass industry. There's not a lot of people I'm competing with. And at the end of the day, I'm actually, there's enough room for all of us to go viral and become popular on social media. Truth be told, it's just me. I feel like I'm getting a lot more attention just because of default. There's just not a lot of other content being put out there at scale in the glass world. And by no means do I consider myself the top of the class or the best at it, because it's still so new. There's so many variations. You could do podcasts, you could do these funny reels, you could do educational stuff. There's so many different ways to use the social media to garner attention. And I think that's what I'm so obsessed about. I like the gamesmanship. I like the kind of the hunt, the chase. You know, there's just something about that. It's got its hooks in me. I can't get away from it. I consume a lot, but I like to create a lot as well. I'd like to create 3 times as much as I do, actually, because I'm seeing the benefits of it, not only directly in the business side, but the personal branding and on the sales side. I think what a lot of people get stuck on are the views, the vanity. You know, vanity is one of the 7 deadly sins. So they get stuck up on how many comments do I have, how many views I have. What I realized being on the sales floor since 03 till now, and then along the way adopting the social media, was I learned that the social media actually fast forwards your sales process. There's an old sales guru named Dale Carnegie. And Dale Carnegie, many, many, many years ago, wrote a paper that said, if 2 people never met each other, and I wanted to get money from you for my goods and services, we would need to have about 7 to 10 touches. Meaning, I came in the showroom, you came to my job site, we had a couple phone calls, we had a couple emails. And what's happening during that 7 to 10 is we're building rapport. And we're on the 10th touch, we have enough rapport where you trust me enough to give me your money for my goods and services. Well, in this day and age, I don't have time to go meet you 10
Yeah.
times to try and sell you something. But I can post 10, I'm posting 5 pieces of content a day, 5 days a week. That's 25 potential touches that I'm innocuously getting in your brain before we even meet. Now, the first time you meet me, if you recognize that I'm the same person that you've been watching, I've already built up that trust and you don't even know it, which ties into that emotional intelligence component. The social media, for people that say, I don't have time to do social media. If you're wanting to grow your business, I'm telling you, you don't have time not to do social media, because in the long tail, it actually shortens up the sales process. I can go pen to paper with you either the first or second touch, where Dale Carnegie used to say it's 7 to 10 touches. The social media is filling those touches for me without you even knowing it, which is massively powerful.
Yeah.
Massively.
Do you think there's any difference between visibility or just content that makes noise in social media? Going back to,
I could get on social media and talk about selling shower doors every single day. The problem with doing that is I think people will very quickly get tired of hearing me talk about heavy glass frameless shower doors every day. You can only do that so much, and I can only repackage that so many times. What I was telling you off camera is customers buy from people they like. And that people do other things besides want to buy shower doors. So in a lot of my content, I interject humor. And it might not have anything to do with what I'm not pitching anything. What I'm trying to do is for somebody to digest this piece of content and say, and especially in this polarizing, negative, grossly negative world that we live in now, they see a piece of content and they say, man, that's funny. Like, I like this guy. What does he do? Oh, if I ever needed a heavy glass frameless shower door, that's somebody I want to buy from. So it might be looked at as noise when I first post it, but I promise you it's getting attention at some level. Now, I also believe there's types of social media content that can be created that are targeted literally for one individual. There's posts that I do, even though they might have gotten thousands, hundreds of thousands of views. I actually posted that piece of content for one individual. I'll give you an example. About 6 months ago, I did a post at our factory where there was this beautiful sunset, and you could see our installation trucks kind of going alongside of our building. There's about 18 of them, and it just took a perfect shot. And I was talking about how we can convene a team of roughly 40 individuals with the 18 vans. If you were a commercial contractor and you had a high rise full of shower doors and you were against a timeline and you needed somebody that you could count on to get the job done. And the reason why I was doing that post was we had a bid out with a local contractor that was building a high rise with several hundred shower enclosures. And I know that the shower enclosures are one of the last pieces of the puzzle. And usually by that time, the contractor has had so many delays because of all the other trades. They're under a lot of pressure. They need to get this done. And so I wanted to showcase in this piece of content strictly to that individual without saying their name and being kind of salesy with it, that if there was a contractor out there that was worried about getting something done in time, that rest assured there's a company out there that's large enough that could handle this. So I actually think you can make the argument that any type of content is good.
it's good.
I'm also doing content right now where I show our installers carrying a piece of glass, and I purposefully have put a weight on there that is not even close to what the actual weight is. It could be a 200-pound piece of glass. There's 4 guys carrying it, and I put, watch us carry this 1,200-pound piece of glass. Now, obviously, to anybody that's been in the glass industry, that's 100% satire. The problem with this is there's a lot of individuals that don't understand the content creation, and they take that as, why would you be lying to all of us? We know that's not 1,200, and they can't help themselves. I was telling you earlier about human nature principles that are unavoidable. They can't help, but they have to feel like they have to comment and correct. There's no way that piece of glass is 1,200, it's 200 pounds. But anytime you can invoke an emotion, whether it's positive or negative, they can't help it. There used to be an old radio disc jockey, Howard Stern. He had all these listeners, and a majority of his listeners don't even like him, but they can't help but continuing to watch and listen to it because it invokes an emotion. So when you say, is some content pointed or noise, I think it's all good, but you should be tactful in it. And I'm watching all the matrix on everything that I post, and I'm not just spray and praying. There's a method to my madness when I'm putting stuff out there. I have a strategy, but um, I think some people can get bogged down in the strategy and then don't end up posting anything. So at the end of the day, I would highly encourage people to get out on social media, hit the record button, and post.
And start posting.
And you'll find your niche, or you'll find what your thing is, to attract attention. And if you're not getting attention with your posts right now, the good news is change it. If you're not seeing any results, then that just means you need to, calibrate it a little bit, tweak it.
Tweaks and
Yeah.
cool. Keith, I have like 1, 2 questions before jumping on our last segment.
Yes.
But what do you think, would be the piece of advice you would give to an installer that is growing?
Well, an installer that's growing, one piece of advice that I would give to any installer that wants to have a further career with the company that they're at is, I think your best ability would be availability. So if you were a new installer, if I was a new employee here working for you at this facility, I would be yearning every single opportunity that, you say, hey, can you come in this Saturday? Can you go do this extra delivery after your hours? It would be my number one priority to capitulate with every single thing that you needed, because I know you're going to be looking at, even though I might be the newest employee here, you will be looking at me different than everyone else here, because I'm helping you, just like we talked about finding the pain points with customers.
Yeah.
Well, I know you must be under a pain point if you're asking a favor of me or for me to go above and beyond what I'm doing. So I think every installer should not only take pride and passion in what they're currently doing, but they should be looking for the opportunities to go above and beyond, because that'll be the fastest way. It's not necessary, but if you're wanting to grow within the company, that'll be the fastest way to move up and get the respect and earn the credibility from the people, the powers that be, that are in the position to lift you up. Now, if you are doing that, full disclosure, and the owners are taking advantage of that, there's a fine line. If you're finding out that you're not being promoted over 2-3 years of being a high level performer, then maybe it's time to take your services elsewhere. However, if it's a good owner and you've done your due diligence and it seems like the culture is good, there's not a lot of turnover, the best ability is availability. Make yourself available.
Perfect.
And then, cleanliness. I think that's one that's probably most often overlooked. I tell a lot of our installers, our trucks are immaculate. All of them are the same. They're organized the same way. A pet peeve of me personally is dashboards. You see some of these trucks that go around and the dashboard looks like a garbage can was emptied on it. And I tell them the mindset when you pull up to a customer's house and your truck looks like a toilet is the customer is going to start making assumptions about your professionalism based on what they see, which means when you get in that house, they might start watching every move you make. And I'm sure there's a lot of installers that are out there saying, oh, I hate that. I hate when the customer is just over my shoulder staring at me, because you start second guessing yourself. It's just an uncomfortable position to be in. And usually they caused that themselves because they were late to the appointment. They didn't call them when they were on their way. And then when they got there, their truck looked like a dumpster. Maybe they reek of cigarette smoke, the shirt's untucked. Take your job professionally. Show up as you would want someone to show up to you. And watch how much more flexibility the customer gives you when you pull up to the home.
Incredible. And my last question, Keith. What skills do you think or the professionals should learn or develop for the next 5 years with all this world that it's changing, technology, AI? I mean, a bunch of other things. What do you think should be those skills?
Well, the two most important ones to be able to grow your personal brand and your business are definitely going to be the emotional intelligence and the content creation. And I say the emotional intelligence because I believe within the next 5 years, a high level performer, let's just say the 1%, the top level performers are all emotionally intelligent, not because that allows them to get more work. What it allows them to do is identify work that they're not going to get. I think a lot of people that aren't emotional savvy when it comes to sales end up spending a tremendous amount of time chasing jobs they never had a chance of getting in the first place because they were so fixed on the shiny object. They weren't paying attention to cues that the potential opportunity was giving them, that they were probably just shopping them or they were using them as validation for a bid that they got somewhere else. You know, there's studies out there that show 20% of the opportunities they're going to be calling this business here are never going to buy from you. They're just calling to get free information to validate another competitor's quote. And so the high level performers can quickly identify that and not spend as much time. There's an old saying that says it's not a sin to not get a deal. It's a sin to take a long time not to get a deal. So just think about how much time you spent over the years following up on a job that you never got. And what could you do with your time if you were able to capture all that back? You could focus it on other jobs that you might actually have an opportunity at closing. And so that's why the emotional intelligence is so important, is to be able to identify jobs that you're never going to get in the first place. And then the content creation, like we talked about, is the only tool that I'm aware of currently, and I'm sure there'll be something new in the future with AI and everything that's coming. The social media allows you to get out to the masses without having to go out to all these networking events, which, by the way, I still do. But when we first built our business, we were going out to Chamber of Commerce, home builders, SCORE, Rotary Club. We were going to public venues so I can meet, shake hands, and give out business cards. You can only do so many of those, right? I can only meet so many people in a day. But with social media, again, if you're hitting it right, you could potentially hit millions of eyeballs at a time. So, and it costs you nothing. So the content creation, I think, is also something that's massively underutilized, especially in the glass world.
Yeah, and combined with emotional intelligence,
Yes.
because
It's a dangerous combo.
that gives that imperfection that probably it's because with AI you can create any kind of content, but you're not connecting.
You're not connecting, which that's funny that you say that. People that are afraid to get on because they're worried about what they look like. I actually think there's almost an allure to the vulnerability or the authenticity
Yeah,
that comes through that because you're humanizing the situation. And
correct. Because right now with AI, I mean, you can do reels, perfect reels
Yeah.
with perfect conversations and looking and everything, but you're not connecting. I mean, you're able to see that it's not another human. It's not the
Right.
person you were saying. I mean, the person that probably it's coming to my house to do the installation, to do the job. So yeah, I mean, cool.
Yeah.
All right, kid. So let's jump into the segment of rapid questions.
Ooh.
I'm gonna ask you a question,
Yep.
and you just whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
All right. So one habit that changed your career.
Consistency.
Okay. One mistake professionals should avoid.
Not listening to your gut.
One book, podcast, or resource you recommend.
Okay, a book that changed my life. This person also has what's called a master class. The book is called Never Split the Difference. And the person who wrote it, his name is Chris Voss. He was a former FBI hostage and kidnap negotiator. He's an emotional intelligence specialist. And that book changed my life.
What's the name of the book again?
Never Split the Difference.
All right. One skill every installer should improve.
Organization.
What does success mean to you today?
Success for me today is the ability to earn the respect of my peers by leading through example. That's success to me today.
Perfect. Keith, man, thank you very much. I really appreciate you came here to talk with us, to share all this with the audience and with us. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
I'm
And thank
humbled
you
to
so
be
much.
here. And by the way, side note, beautiful facility. And the teammates that you have behind the cameras that nobody can see right now, thank you. This is really exciting. It made me feel like a professional.
Uh, thank you so much, man. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Technical skills open the door, but those skills never teaches you determine how far you can go. Save this video, like us, and see you on the next episode of the Glass Hardware Show.